Hey guys, what is up? It's Jack Scott Lee, and I'm doing another chart today. I'm adding to my serial killer charts because loads of people asked me to do serial killer charts. The last one that I did ages ago, was for the Moors murders, and it's become one of my most popular videos actually. So go check that out if you haven't seen it. It's a great. Serial killer charts is so interesting to look into. So today I'm looking at. I think pretty much everyone knows who this guy is. Ted Bundy, like a really famous serial killer, from American serial killer. I think he was the first person to be actually named a serial killer because he killed that many people and wanted in so many states. So let's get stuck in. So this guy was a Leo rising. Even though he's a Leo rising, all of his Leo energy falls into that 12th house. Like I said before, the 12th house is the hidden house, the house of secrets, the house of your downfall, the house of karma. This is your subconscious mind. Sometimes this house is even hidden from you, or hidden from other people. The house. Yeah, so basically all of his energy is falling into that house where he might even know who he was. People wouldn't know the real him. He wouldn't even fucking know who was hidden from plain sight. And he was kind of in the fringe of the society where he kind of always lived on the outskirts of society. Anyone always went hidden, and which is probably why he actually went. He was hidden from so long, from being discovered as a serial killer. A lot of his energy of the first house falls into Virgo actually. So he has a lot of Virgo energy, and Virgo is very much known for, if you're going to talk about the dark side of astrology, the Virgo energy is very much to do with anxiety, mental health, irrational behaviour, irrational thinking, depression, psychosis, all that sort of stuff. The Virgo energy can be indicative of having mummy issues, which I know that he did. Issues because Virgo is the Virgin Mother. So a lot of Virgos always have either a really good relationship with their mum, or they have something awry with it as well, which he definitely did. His mum didn't even want to have him, or I think the story was something to do with that. He was an unplanned pregnancy, and he was in the 1930s or something like that, or 40s, where it was really frowned upon to have children out of wedlock. So I think his mum was sent away somewhere to like a house where they'd have girls having children, and they'd just abandon them or whatever, or hidden out of plain sight, which is very much his energy of the 12th house, So that's where his mum issues have started. And the ruler of his Virgo, even though the sun is his chart ruler, I'm going to use Mercury too, because Virgo fills up most of his first house, and Mercury is combust. In fact, he has 4 planets combust. So when planets are combust, that means they're travelling very close to the sun. So his Venus, his Mercury, which are both retrograde, by the way. So not only is his chart ruler combust, it's also retrograde as well. Mercury rules communication. Mercury rules thinking. It rules speaking. It rules how we interact, as in our thoughts. And the moon, which is conjunct Mars as well. Mars is all to do with violence, anger. It's very passionate. It's in the sign of Sagittarius anyway. Mars in Sag can be very, very fiery. Mars is all fire. Sag is a fire sign. So imagine the two together is like dynamite. And it's so close to that moon. That moon is all to do with your feelings and how you feel. So having this Mercury going backwards, which is the sun, which rules his 12th house, his inner mind, is burning all the planets around it. So imagine having that burning kind of desire, sexual desire, desire to want to kill people inside of you, and not be able to process your thoughts properly because your Mercury, your thinking, is actually travelling backwards. So it's awry anyway, and it's burnt out by the sun. Also as well. So he killed a lot of women, and this is all to do with having Mars so close to the moon. Moon is all to do with female energy. It can literally mean women as well. He has South Node in conjunct to the moon also, so he would have had a lot of past life karma when it came to females anyway, and he's got a hell of a lot more karma now because he's killed so bloody many of them. But Mars, which rules things like knives, weapons, violence, is sitting right on his moon, which rules feminine energy. So you just put two and two together. The degree of his Mars is 13. 13 is the Aries degree anyway. So he's got a super strong Aries, kind of like a triple fire Mars, where he's just explosive when it comes to his emotions. I feel like with that Mercury so close to the Sun, making squares to Pluto, he would have had a really hard time expressing himself growing up as a child and as an adult as well, even more so. When he would have felt like an outsider, which I know that he did. He would be a bit of a social outcast. He may even been seen as like a bit of like special needs, maybe, even though he probably wasn't. He was highly intelligent with that Uranus in the 10th house there. Uranus is the the sign of like a genius. He's got that right on his 10th house. Again, Uranus is travelling backwards too. What is Uranus? Uranus is like unpredictability, lightning bolts, uncertainty, shock. It's making oppositions. It's standing right opposite his Mars. So if you can see the red line going between Mars and Uranus, it's like they're going into battle with each other. And the 10th has your public persona. And if you ever saw him on TV or his interviews, he's very, very eccentric, because Uranus rules Aquarius, and Aquarius is a very eccentric sign. So he would have come across as very Aquarian, because Aquarius rules Uranus is in his 10th, and your 10th has your public persona, how you are received by the public. So he would have come across very, very like eccentric. And it's standing opposite. It's like squaring up to challenging Mars, which is all to do with violence as well. So it's all to do with lashing out, unpredictable. One minute he'd be like, nice as pie. Next minute he would be stabbing you up. You know what I mean? So that's that energy. But yeah, if you watch him in interviews, documentaries, he comes across very, very eccentric, but also very, very highly intelligent person as well. It's in the sign of Gemini, which is all to do with communication, all to do with genius, all to do with learning, thinking, all that sort of stuff. Gemini energy is very much like a flittery anyway, and jittery, flittery energy, where it's got so much energy. It's kind of light. It's not like Sagittarius, where Sagittarius has to be always doing something. Gemini is not floating around here and there. So imagine having Uranus there as well. Uranus also do the unpredictable energy as well. In the sign of Gemini, it's like a double dose of this like nervous kind of like almost, it kind of indicative of mental health issues as well. I'd say even almost like bipolar, you know what I mean? Where 1 minute he'd be up and 1 minute he'd be down with this sort of energy. It's making a sextile to his ascendant as well. So this is how he'd come across to other people also. What else do you want to say about his chart? So yeah, so he's got all these like planets traveling backwards. So his Venus for one is in Scorpio, as is his Mercury, as is his Jupiter and Chiron. So this is a lot of heavy Scorpio energy. It's a lot of Scorpio energy for one person. Especially at the base of the chart, because the base of the chart is all to do with your inner world and your inner being. This is also tied up to his family life as well. I know he had a lot of issues regarding growing up and not being wanted, etc. And there was sexual abuse around him, and I think it was his grandparent who looked after him. And you can see that with Saturn in the 12th house. Saturn can rule like older people in your life, like your father or even your grandparents too. And the 4th and the 10th house, where he has a lot of activity, are the houses of parents and grandparents, and he has a lot of instability and violence and aggression going on here with that Mars sitting there, conjunct his moon. So obviously he would have a very turbulent relationship with women, which we know that he did because he was killing so many of them, and he was into that necrophilia as well, which can be seen with Venus being retrograde and invisible, because this means that Venus isn't acting how she's supposed to be healthily. She's being burnt alive by the sun. Imagine Venus, the goddess Aphrodite, being burnt alive, also travelling backwards, not knowing what the fuck she's supposed to be doing, in the sea of Scorpio, which is all about passion, intense desires, the darker side of life, and Mercury's like that as well. This is him having like really deep dark thoughts, obsessive behaviour, violence, sexual violence, oppression, all this sort of stuff going on. Jupiter's in the mix as well. Jupiter explodes wherever it is. It makes things even like big, exacerbates everything. So imagine having all this intense energy with Chiron as well. The moon is healer. This could actually mean physical wounds as well, not just mental as well. This is in the third and the fourth house cusp. This is all to do with how you think and how you communicate. So he would be having like vivid sort of like dreams or illusions or fantasies about wanting to kill people, and about necrophilia as well. This is all tied up with Jupiter and Chiron in Scorpio, the planet of pain, being exacerbated next to Venus travelling backwards, being burnt alive, as is Mercury as well. So he would not know the difference between reality and his illusions. So like I was saying before, he has all of his Leo energy, this gregarious energy. Negative Leo energy would be like very selfish, God complex, wanting to be seen, selfish, me. It's like, imagine Leo the lion, like a negative aspect would be this killer animal. You know, the lion is one of the strongest beasts in the jungle. So imagine having that in your 12th house. This hidden like energy where he was like this. He was the killer. You know, this is what he was. He was one of the biggest killers that we've ever known. And Leo is the lion, isn't it? In the 12th hidden house. So it literally played out as it is. He was the first serial killer ever to be named a serial killer. We've got Pluto, the planet of destruction, planet of sex, planet of death, planet of violence, travelling backwards, uncontrollably in his 12th house. The hidden house, the house of your downfall, the house of sex, the house of prison, the house of this is the house of imprisonment. He has Saturn there, so there's no doubt that he would have gone to prison anyway. It's conjunct Pluto too. I mean, he broke free from prison a few times, which is why because Saturn and Pluto are both retrograde and they're not acting as they should be. This is why he was able to escape a prison a few times, because he had that energy of Saturn. Saturn retrograde is a bit more looser, where he can allow people to escape from prison, because Saturn is like a blockage. So this gave him some lucky breaks when it came to defying the law and defying being caught and actually escaping prison a few times. Saturn in the 12th house is very karmic, so he had a lot of karmic lessons. He had a lot of lessons to learn while he was here. Whether he learned them or not, I don't know. He'd definitely be reincarnated again, I reckon, with this sort of energy. But yeah, so also, while we're talking about prison escapes, he has Neptune in the house of the second house, the house of values. So he wouldn't have any values, not normal ones, because he could rationale what is right or wrong. Neptune is the great dissolver. It kind of puts a cosmic fog wherever it is. So in the house of values, he didn't really have any. So and the Neptune's actually making sextiles to his 12th house and to his moon as well. So he would have really fucked up relationships with men and women, because it's conjunct his Mars and his moon as well, regarding boundaries, sex, possible drug and drink abusing as well. But this linking his 12th house and his 4th house together with his second, so this would all have started around his family life and growing up and wanting to lash out and attack all these women and kill them. So yeah, his Neptune falls in Libra, which is why he escaped the law so much, because Libra rules the law, it rules the courts of law, it rules justice. Having Neptune placed there, Neptune put a fog over everything, even to the point where the police didn't even recognise him just because he changed his hairstyle a few times, and he'd get away. He literally got away with murder for God knows how long, because people didn't recognise him or couldn't put the finger on him. He was wanted so many states, and no one put two and two together for a long time. This is Neptune Neptune actually sitting in Libra in his second house, making conjunctions to Mars, which again rules violence. It literally rules weapons and knives. It's at 13 degrees, which is an Aries degree. He has 13 degrees Mars. He has a 13 degrees Pluto, and a 13 degrees Jupiter as well. So he has a lot of Aries energy. And imagine having an Aries Mars, which is ruled by Aries in the house of a fire sign. It's like triple fire. So all this fire going on around women, around passion, around obsession, around killing, around sex and violence. Leading on to sex and violence, we have Pluto and Venus. And Pluto and Mercury, Pluto and Jupiter, all making squares. So Pluto square Venus is very, very telling of sexual violence, obsession, acts of violence in sex, during sex, getting obsessed with people, people being obsessed with you. This is about sexual abuse of him growing up as well. I know his grandfather abused him. You can see that with the Saturn, because Saturn is opposing his Sun. Sorry, Saturn is squaring his Sun. So that can also show signs of sexual abuse from a father or someone, a father figure, or some sort of blockage as well when it comes to parentals or people in charge of you, and just you kind of having your childhood stolen from you, or your youth taken away from you almost as well. But yeah, Saturn conjunct the Sun, he wasn't able to express himself. He couldn't live his full positive potential because he had Saturn and Pluto squaring his Sun, squaring his Venus. Pluto square Venus is violence against women, especially that 12th house. 12th house is all to do with death and violence and imprisonment. Sitting in Scorpio. Scorpio is all about, Scorpio can all be about the dark side of life, the occult. Scorpio Venus is all about passion, intimacy, and intense desires anyway. So yeah, I wanted to touch on why so many people, like women, loved him too, because he had Neptune sextiling the moon and sextiling his Mars, because so loads of people found him really attractive and they were really charmed by him. And this is because that Neptunian fog was making a fog to his moon, yeah. So the moon, which rules feminine energy, women or feminine energy, even like some guys were totally smitten and just in love with him because of how he looked, because he was so charming. He wasn't the typical serial killer look, you know what I mean? He looked like this American poster boy almost at one point in his youth. And this is why he attracted so many women, and he was able to kill so many because they just trusted him because he was quite handsome. Again, 7th house is ruled by his 7th house, which is all to do with relationships. The 8th house of death and sex. We have Aquarius touching it. We have Neptune there. So Pisces there too. So like I said before, this is all to do with having no boundaries, loads of illusion, escapism, fog surrounding women, relationships. There were no boundaries in place. People were blinded by him. He was blinded by them. He didn't really know what the fuck he was doing. Did he know what he was doing? To a certain degree. But that Uranus in the 10th house conjunct the North Node, he'd flip a switch and he wouldn't know where he was. Kind of almost like blind fantasy rage with that Neptune energy to his moon, and having that Mercury so afflicted as well. And also as well, in the 8th house of death and sex and intimacy, we have Aries. And like I said before, Aries energy on the dark side is all to do with power, control, passion, violence. And the ruler of Aries is in his 4th house of home, his inner being, conjunct his Sun. So he was a very angry, violent man. What else do I want to quickly say about that as well? He was a very angry man. Saturn in the 12th house is all to do with his past life karma too, and also having Pluto and Saturn in that house, in that 12th house, would have him like a fantasist when it comes to like sex, bondage, fetish, control, necrophilia, etc. All that fucked up stuff, which is what he was into. And the reason why it all came to light again these last couple of years, where he's become almost famous again, is because he had the North Node going through his 11th house. So the nodes would be karmic points in his chart. We'll go through the 11th house. 11th house is all to do with public persona. All to do with mass media almost, and big, large groups. So this is why the documentaries and the films are all being made even after his death. As Leo ascendant, he wanted to be infamous. He wanted to leave a legacy. He wanted to be famous. He wanted to be remembered, not for how he was, but he actually, as opposed to becoming famous, he became infamous. And this is because his sun is falling in the 4th house as opposed to being in the 10th house. If it was the opposite way, he could have been famous for better things. But he has the North Node in the 10th as well, so he would have been remembered anyway and infamous anyway, having that North Node karmic destiny in the 10th house of the public persona. So he will always be remembered, even though it's not for anything totally pleasant at all, and being remembered for some really negative things and some really fucked up shit that he did. And yeah, so that's how the bare bones of his chart. I want to see anything else I want to quickly go over. Yeah, 5th house Capricorn, the 5th, so putting a block on all his fun, putting a block on dating life as well. He struggled with dating and things, even though he had a lot of female attention. He even married in prison actually, which is what the 5th house could be with the Capricorn there, ruling institutions. He actually got married in prison, for God's sake, and 5th house is all to do with dating and stuff, isn't it? So he even got bloody married in prison and had children there. This is Saturn retrograde in the 12th with Leo there as well. And side note as well, Leo energy as an ascendant's how you look. Leos tend to have Leo energy, Leo rising especially, tend to have really good hair, which I definitely noticed that he did. Yeah. So right, okay, so that's pretty much all I want to say about him. I hope you love this video. Give it a like. I love if you subscribe and share it. Leave it in the comments. Anyone else you want me to look at as birth charts, or if you want me to look at yours, follow me on Instagram. It's Jack Scott Lee Show or Jack Scott Lee, and I will see you, man, next video.